Hello and welcome. This is another in the 10-minute tips series for credit department professionals. This presentation is titled Credit Department Ethics. My name is Michael Dennis. I'll be your presenter today. Question: can ethics be taught? And my answer is no. No, it cannot be taught, but we can and should take the time to examine ethical issues and ethical dilemmas. Specifically, when we talk about examining, what we're talking about is examining the impact of ethical issues on our actions and on credit decisions. The bad news is that there is no rule of thumb when it comes to ethical dilemmas. There's no shortcuts, and we shouldn't look for shortcuts. Ideally, and I encourage you to do this, please take the time to consider ethical issues and how you might respond to them before an actual ethical problem presents itself to you in real life. Basic ethical rules: be truthful and be honest. Always make decisions that are in the best interest of your company and of your department. Keep your promises and your commitments to your boss, to your coworkers, to customers, to the sales department. Always demonstrate loyalty to your company and coworkers and, of course, your manager. Report potential conflicts of interest to management. That's a very simple statement, but a very important one. Always identify formally, in writing, in a meeting, that you have a conflict of interest. And then disqualify yourself if you have a factual conflict of interest, or even if you have a potential conflict of interest involving an action to be taken by the credit department or a decision to be made by the credit department. Never accept gifts from vendors, such as collection agencies. Abide by all laws, all rules, and all regulations. And when I say this, I'm talking about obeying the letter of the law, and I'm talking about obeying the spirit of the law. And at the same time, accept personal responsibility for actions, especially actions that involve ethical dilemmas. If you see something, say something. Most companies have one or more mechanisms for reporting ethical issues, ethical dilemmas, problems. What's topical in the news today is sexual harassment. If you see something, say something. So tell your boss, tell HR, tell the ethics hotline. Report inappropriate, unethical, or unlawful behavior as soon as you observe it to your boss, to the ethics hotline, to any member of the management team if for some reason you're not comfortable in talking to your boss about it. Specifics: credit department personnel should not participate in any secret agreements. Our decisions need to be made without any bias, without any prejudice. The credit department must not, may not collude with other creditors. You cannot agree, for example, on when you will place an account on hold with a competitor. You cannot agree to sell or not to sell. You cannot agree about territories that you won't sell in and they will sell in. You cannot agree on a combined action involving one or more customers or potential customers. That is unlawful. And to the extent that you have any questions about that, please consult with your attorney. To the extent that you routinely share credit information, and I assume most of you do, the information exchanged with other creditors or with your industry credit group must be factual, historical information. Nothing more. No comments, no opinions, no recommendations. We're talking about factual, historical information. Like what? Date account opened, amount owed, amount past due, how far past due. Do you have security? Do you not have security or collateral? And manner of payment. Those are factual, historical data points. Those are not subjective. They are not opinion, because we cannot and must not offer opinions. We can only share historical facts. At the same time, in interactions with anyone, especially with competitors. We cannot provide false or misleading information. And of course, the credit department, in the context of hiring as well as in the context of decision making and elsewhere, cannot discriminate, especially on the basis of classifications that are protected, such as age, gender, race, national origin, color, creed. Please try to avoid the appearance of impropriety. One example, one easy way to avoid appearances of impropriety is try not to play favorites involving your subordinates. Let me share, as a manager, as a department head at one point, the idea that subordinates are very attentive to the manner in which you interact with one versus the other. They are always looking and observing and are always concerned about even the appearance of favoritism. As a supervisor, as a lead, as a manager, as a department head, you cannot afford, you cannot fall into the trap of playing favorites with your subordinates. To avoid the appearance of impropriety, we also need to remember to keep information that has been shared with you, information that has been shared with the credit department, in confidence. We need to keep that information secret, including but not limited to credit reports. I'm sure you know, but in case you don't, credit reports come with a non-disclosure, a confidentiality. We can't republish them. We can't share them with industry credit groups. There are limitations, contractual limitations, I would add, involving the credit reporting agency that tell us basically what we can and what we cannot do with credit reports. So we need to be aware of what those are. Same thing with trade clearance reports, the information that you get from your industry credit group. Generally, and I'm not necessarily in your credit group, but normally industry credit group membership indicates that, hey, we're going to provide you with reports on a regular basis. These are the things that you may not do with that credit report, and typically they relate in some way to you don't get to share that information with your salesperson. Typically customer financial statements, balance sheets and income statements and statements of cash flow that we periodically request and receive from privately held customers. Normally, those documents are marked confidential, or they are considered confidential, or we have had to sign a non-disclosure agreement to obtain them. Obviously, any information that is marked or otherwise to be treated as confidential is not something that you can pass around. You can't talk about it at an industry credit group meeting. You can't show the financial statements, let's just say, to the salesperson. You use them internally within the department for decision-making purposes only. Trade reference responses. So you request a reference from a competitor. You get that response. Clearly, their expectation is that you're not going to turn around, for example, and say to the customer, well, I talked to one of your other suppliers, and the reason that we're declining to extend credit to you is they tell us you're a lousy paying customer. Those responses that you get from that competitor company are not to be shared, especially not shared with the customer in question. Same with bank reference responses. One final comment about the appearance of impropriety involves off-the-record conversations. If anybody ever uses those words, run in the other direction, because you're not a lawyer. And I'm not even sure lawyers can have this type of off-the-record discussions, but let's just make it as basic as we can. Don't have off-the-record discussions with other creditors. There's nothing there's no advantage, there's no benefit, there's nothing good that can come out of an off-the-record discussion with another creditor company about a customer. It is, at an absolute minimum, a situation in which there is the appearance of impropriety. Whether or not it's actual impropriety depends on the nature of that off-the-record discussion. Credit references. as we talked about earlier, provide only factual information. Date account open, payment terms, amount owed, amount past due, recent high credit, payment habits, and whether or not your company is a secure creditor. The only one that's controversial on those, in my opinion, is some companies don't provide their payment terms. They don't say, for example, we offer net 45 days to this particular customer, or 1% 30, net 45, whatever your payment terms are, because some people are based on instructions that they receive from their attorney, they are uncomfortable even providing factual information that says, yep, these are the payment terms we currently offer to that customer today. So even though it's factual, if your attorney, and you might want to ask your attorney, if your attorney says don't share that information, please don't share that information. And again, don't add comments, and don't make recommendations, and don't do ratings, because you're not a rating agency. As far as I know, nobody taking nobody listening today is themselves a credit rating agency. Well, the only parties that can rate companies are credit rating agencies, not us. We have personal opinions, but those are not the same thing as credit ratings. Well, thank you. Thank you for your time and attention. I hope that you found this presentation to be useful and helpful, and have a great day.